go ahead. All right,
Good, good afternoon. Welcome to our February Pillar 3 Advisory Council meeting. My name is Olivia Pearson, College Readiness Supervisor for Prince George's County Public Schools, and one of the co-chairs of this committee. And I will turn it over to my other co-chair for the rest of the Pillar 3 team to introduce themselves.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kirkland Murray, Local Workforce Development Director in Anne Arundel County and President of the Maryland Workforce Association. Glad that everyone is joining us today. And I will turn it over to Dave Harper.
Thank you, Kirkland. Dave Harper joining from Chesapeake Community College on Maryland's Eastern Shore. We serve 5 counties. Nona?
Hi, good afternoon. Nona Carroll, Deputy Director and Chief Program Officer with the Maryland Business Roundtable for Education. We're a statewide organization working with students directly in college and career readiness. Robin.
Hi, everyone. Robin Werner, Talbot County Public Schools Director of Teaching and Learning. I think that is our committee, correct? So I can hand over to guest. So I will pass over to Richard.
Hi, everyone. My name is Richard Kincaid. I lead the Office of College and Career Pathways at MSDE.
Lindsay?
Good afternoon, Lindsay Brightful, Director of Mathematics at MSDE.
Dr. Dreyer?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Dreyer, Vice President of Academic Programs at Cecil College and current chair of the Chief Academic Officers for Community Colleges for Maryland.
Thank you. We also have several guests representing career coaching, and I will let Kirk introduce some of our guests.
So thank you, Olivia. So we're very excited. Later in our meeting, we're going to hear directly from some recipients of our career coaches, some of the students. But first of all, I'd like to have Andrew and Laura introduce themselves and then maybe introduce the students, even though we'll hear from them a little later on in our meeting. You want to start with the far west, Andrew?
Sure. I'm Andrew McLean. I'm the Career Readiness Coordinator at Washington County Public Schools, overseeing the career counseling program here. And we have a student joining us later this afternoon, Nadia Farouk, who's at South Hagerstown High School, and who's going to share a little bit about her story and her experience with the positive experience with her career coach.
Thank you all for having us. My name is Laura Brown. I'm the Career Coach Coordinator with Frederick County Public Schools. In attendance here today, we have Tanya Chubb, our Career Coach at Urbana High School, and Aria Winbush, student at Urbana High School, who is going to share her experience with Tanya, her Career Coach at Urbana. Thank you so much.
Glad to have you all here today. Deidre, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Deidre Price. I'm the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and College Provost with Montgomery College. And I'm pleased to be with you all here today, just as a member of the M4CAO group.
Welcome, Aisha. Would you introduce yourself as a member of the committee?
Hi, everyone. My name is Isha. I'm the student member for the Pillar 3 Advisory Board.
And then, of course, we have our fabulous AIB staff.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Amstutz, Policy Director. Super excited to be joining. Been a little while since I've been here with Pillar 3, but it's great to see everybody and looking forward to today's conversation. Libby?
Hi, everybody. Libby Diamond, Policy Analyst with the AIB. I support Pillars 1, 2, and 3. Happy to be here, and I'll pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. Gretchen Cheney, also a Policy Analyst with the AIB. Solely focused on Pillar 3, a lot of this career counseling, CTE, the transitions to what's next kind of pieces of Pillar 3. So nice to see you all.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. We are going to start with AIB updates, if there are any.
Sure, I can start with a couple, and then Gretchen and Libby, if I miss anything, feel free to chime in. I just wanted to put a few things out there on the radar and to let you know what's coming up or what's underway now. If you've been following our meetings, you know that we recently awarded a contract for the interim evaluation. And so that's a big component of our work here as we get deeper into blueprint evaluation. So NORC has been awarded the contract. It's very, very early stages, so we don't have much more information to share besides that. The only thing I can mention that might be of interest, if this is a topic of interest to you, is that our Pillar 5 Advisory Committee will be talking about this and the aligned measures and blueprint outcome measures work group, all of the connections between measuring progress of blueprint at their upcoming meeting in early March. So if you have an interest in these types of topics, that might be an interesting session for you to consider attending or following along or catching later. I also wanted to mention that there's 2 topics related to Pillar 3 happening at MSDE that you want to probably be keeping on your radar, which I know many of you already are, but that would be the new math policy and the continuation of work around the CCR work. And so I know we're talking about some of those today, but just wanted to make sure that everybody listening knows that lots of great things are happening. And so it's a really key time to be leaning in, following along, and sharing your insights when public feedback is sought. On the AIB side, I think we've already shared that we've hired a new team member who is our government relations person, but Joy Schaefer has joined us and is tremendous help right now as we're knee deep in session. But we also are still aiming to staff up. We, I think, have 11 staff members of our 16 now, and we will be posting some more policy analyst positions, one around Pillar 1 and potentially one around Pillar 3, which it's such a big umbrella of topics that we tend to split it into at least 2 parts. So keep an eye out for those positions. And the last thing I wanted to mention is about career counseling. Since Gretchen came on board and is helping us out with all things related to kind of that second half of Pillar 3, we've had the capacity to go through all of the submissions around career counseling, which included annual reports and the financial reports that were submitted in November. And we will be getting individualized feedback out to every county regarding their submissions. And that will be done pretty soon. We've got them drafted. Gretchen has done an amazing job going through all of those and being able to capture lots of great information. And then we will be planning to meet with every county individually, like we did last year. We did some together. This year, you can expect it to just be one county at a time. We learned we cannot handle 3 at once, but we will be doing 1 at a time so that we can hear updates of what's working, what you've tried, what you've learned, and how we're doing with implementing career counseling. So we did just want to put that out there, that will be coming up. Those were the major things that I saw as highlights. Libby and Gretchen, any others? Okay, we'll turn it back over to you, Olivia.
Okay, thank you. Today's agenda, we are going to be talking about the mathematics plans that the LEAs submitted, as well as an update on career counseling. And so I am happy to turn it over to Lindsay to discuss the mathematics plan.
Thank you. And I'm gonna share my screen, hopefully without any hiccups. Oh, wrong screen. Okay. So good afternoon again. I'm Lindsay Brightful, Director of Mathematics here at MSDE. And as Olivia shared, I'm going to talk about Local Education Agency, or LEA, comprehensive math plans. And as relating to what Rachel shared, I'll have a chance to make some connections to the math policy that is currently out for comment. So I'll give a little bit of background. I'm going to talk about the purpose and the connection of comprehensive math plans to the blueprint, the process that we've gone through to review comprehensive math plans, and then what is coming up in the future with them. So comprehensive math plans were a component of LEA blueprint implementation plans as shared in the development guide in December 2023. They were intended to be a extension of original responses to the Pillar 3 CCR related questions around the math instructional programs. We develop support and reviews of comprehensive math plans in partnership with Johns Hopkins Institute for Education Policy. And the plans, all of the plans start with just a brief narrative overview that allow us to better understand what has been the highlight of their math programs between school year 2022-23 and now. So it's been about 2 school years, almost exact from when they first submitted their first responses. So we wanted to give them a chance to reflect on that before talking about how they're moving forward. And so that was a really important part of the plans. The overall goal of LEA's comprehensive math plans is really for them to have the opportunity to be very clear about their math programs and how they're designed to serve all students, how they're using best practices on effective math instruction and professional learning, how they're continuing to align their math programming to the intentions of the blueprint, and to be reflective of their long-term goals and how their short-term goals relate to their long-term goals, all related to mathematics. And really, we know as a state that we have some room to grow in student outcomes in mathematics, and in order for the state to grow, we need each LEA to be accountable and be thinking and reflective about their own growth. This is directly related to the initiatives outlined in the math policy, and some of the specific areas of overlay or alignment is we're really looking for LEAs to think about how their individual programs support the statewide commitment to equity in math instruction. And when we talk about equity in math instruction, we're really talking about what courses students have access to and when, and how do we ensure quality instruction and access to quality materials and resources within those courses. One key component of the math policy is really thinking about student numeracy development, similar to the way we think of literacy development. So what are those key skills that we know students need to master starting in pre-K and continuing along their journey to make sure that they're able to reach advanced math and that they have the skills they need. So the policy requires LEAs to think about how they're monitoring that and supporting students as needed. Ultimately, the policy lays a pathway for all students to reach advanced math pathways by 11th grade at the latest. So really wanting to think about how we define those math pathways and how we're monitoring student access to them. A big part of the policy that is also required of LEAs in the plan is to develop a clear multi-tier system of support, or MTSS, system for students in math, and think about how they're going to identify tier 2 and tier 3 support, getting very specific, including how often students will be identified, what that support will look like, how will be monitored, and what are the key levers of success. And then lastly, I see there's a typo here, which I'll fix, but really wanted to outline how the LEA will collaborate with MSDE to support instruction with revised math standards, including a shift in the secondary or high school math, middle or high school, depending where students access it, but from the algebra geometry, algebra 2 traditional sequence to a 2-year integrated algebra 1 and algebra 2 course. This is a big focus and a big initiative, and something that we've worked really hard with a task force with national and local community college, university, and K-12 math education leaders on what does it look like what should the high school math experience look like for students right now, and how might it be different than it has been traditionally, and why, and how does that still align with the goals of college and career readiness, but also take into account current society and being aligned to student interests and goals. So all of that is outlined in the revised standards, with the culminating courses of foundational math being integrated algebra 1 and 2, and then thinking about how from pre-K we're leading up to that. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. You can raise your hand. There will be a lot of time for questions at the end also. So the next couple of slides just talk about it gives a little bit of insight into what LEAs were provided for guidance. Originally for their pre-K-5 plans, which they turned in last year, and then they will be turning in their full pre-K-12 plans coming up. I will also share a timeline. But each LEA was required to articulate a clear vision for their math programming and think about how it aligns to their overall academic programming and how they would communicate that vision to all stakeholders. Aligned to the vision, they were asked to look at their current data aggregated by school, grade, and student group, and really think about what were some meaningful goals to set, both short-term and long-term, and how they were thinking about interim data, not just waiting year to year on state assessment data, but what other data do they look at to make sure they're on track to their goals, and how do they adjust in response to that data. Another key component was action items for all. We know that it's very important for districts to be thinking about the implementation chain, and how does what is written at the LEA level impact supervisors across the LEA, impact school-based principals, impact coaches, impact teachers, impact students, impact families. So really thinking about a systematic communication goal, and all of this specific to math. So we know that there are plans for overall communication, but we really want to focus in on what does your math action items for all look like. And in some cases, they didn't previously have this, so this was a really strategic time to think about this and to develop it. The other components of the math plan included a professional learning plan, which really asked them to think about a coherent strategy for all of those members of the implementation chain, and how they were reaching each member, and how there was ongoing job-embedded professional development and other learning opportunities to ensure implementation. This equitable instruction component, again, heavily aligning to the math policy, but really thinking about what are the explicit evidence-based teaching practices, how are they monitoring it, and how do they ensure support is available when it is not occurring, and thinking about how students are developing proficiency, both a balance of adaptive reasoning, strategic competence, conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and productive disposition. And how does the LEA define that? How is it aligned to our state definitions, and what support is needed in understanding what that means at the district level, but also at the school level? And lastly, the last component was family and community partnerships, which we know are key levers in success in any academic area, but definitely in math. And so thinking about where families can access centralized information, what sort of workshops are available, what's available online, how do families reach out if they have a question, and how are all the materials available to accommodate families with diverse needs. We also here talked about not just family resources, but community. How are you building partnerships with your local businesses and other support institutions to make sure that you're able to expand math beyond the classroom and have some other experiences for students to learn and apply math. So this is just an overview of the timeline. As I mentioned before, last summer, we put out the first version of the guidance, and that was specific to pre-K to 5 plans. LEAs had the opportunity to participate in Q&A sessions and peer feedback sessions. They submitted their draft pre-K to 5 plans by September 30th, and we began reviewing the plans. They received a first round of written feedback, which was aligned to each component and provided details, areas of strengths and areas of opportunity. At the same time, both the MSDE math team and Hopkins IEP, which stands for Institute for Ed Policy Observers, have been participating in at least one expert review team visit to also get some school observation visit to see what parts of the plan are very clear in action, and being able to provide some feedback around that. We also, the option to discuss the feedback was optional, but all 24 LEAs did participate in that. So it was great to be able to not only provide written feedback, but also to talk through some of the key areas. LEAs had the option to resubmit their draft pre-K to 5 feedback for a second round of review. And also we're continuing, the classroom observations are continuing because we haven't been to all LEAs, so we're continuing to have those implementation conversations. As we move forward to spring and summer of this year, we will share a pre-K to 12 guidance. We are not changing the components, but we will extend some details. One, to be responsive to where we've been having to give a lot of feedback for the pre-K 5 plan, so offering some more support around that, but also ensuring even clearer alignment to the math policy. And then we have a baseline now. We saw their pre-K 5 plans. We've been in classrooms, so we're able to be a little bit more targeted and offer differentiated support for this development. You'll see this pre-K to 12 submission in both spring, summer, fall, winter, because we are in the process of thinking very intentionally about this timeline. So right now it is due in the summer, but we're looking to potentially push it to late summer or early fall. And through collaboration with AIB, but when they submit those, we will provide the final feedback for this first version, and both their pre-K to 12 plans and this feedback will be public documents. And then we also want to think about we don't want the comprehensive math plans to be this document that's created and it sits on the shelf, because we know it can't meet the intended outcomes if that's the type of document it is, but really looking for it to be an ongoing document where we're collecting data, reflecting, sharing best practices, going back and making adjustments, and also continuing to revise practice, but in a way that's meaningful and sustainable. So we're also thinking about what that looks like long-term beyond this school year. Just some overarching strengths and areas of opportunities from the drafts that we have reviewed. I think LEAs have been very clear and intentional about what their priorities are, what their challenges, and how they're responding to them as far as their math programming. This was, I think, an opportunity. I remember in the first round when they submitted 2 years ago about, there was a question like, what's your math vision? What's your math mission? And several LEAs said, we don't have one yet. We're going to develop it over the next 2 years. So I'm very glad to share that all LEAs across the state of Maryland have a very clear vision and mission for math. And so that's already growth and helps to set a foundation of what we intend to see for math instruction to improve and know what we're aiming for. And then goals aligned to that, and a commitment to evidence-based teaching practice and ongoing learning. Overall, we have a very high adoption of HQIM across the state, and LEAs are thinking very strategically about assessments and how families can access resources. And just overviewing some of the areas of opportunities, the biggest one was really around coherence. So we have all these pieces, but how do they all come together to support math instruction? And how is it sustainable in the fact that we are doing everything we need to do, but not too much that we can't keep up with it, and not leaving out any student group by not thinking whole picture. This also relates to the development of MTSS structures. And again, really thinking about that tier 2, tier 3 identification process and how we're using different benchmark metrics to think about progress and success. The professional learning plans, while there weren't really growth goals aligned, a lot of growth goals or progress goals aligned to teacher development. So really thinking about how those can be set and measured. And a lot of LEAs adopted HQIM over the last couple of years, many over COVID. And so they had their initial training, but they didn't set up a system for ongoing training related to implementing in their curriculum. So thinking about how that can be embedded. And then lastly, strategies for intervention, enrichment, and acceleration were a little unclear or vague. So that's the area that we're looking to improve and support as a state. And then they had a lot of resources for families, but there weren't a lot of community feedback mechanisms at the LEA level. So that's something that we're looking to strengthen. So, excuse me, talking for a long time, that's my cue. No. So that's my spill or overview of the comprehensive math plans and where we are so far. I'm always open. Of course, I'll take questions here, but if you can also contact me, and I think I'm pretty good at response time via email. And then also we do have our draft math policy open for feedback on our website. And I can share this link in the chat if anyone here needs it. But it is open through next week, and we welcome feedback from all stakeholders. So I will stop sharing just so I can see faces and open to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think we're all processing. So that silence is a processing wait time.
I do have one quick question. Is there going to be guidance for when we receive students from other states that do not have a similar math plan? I'm thinking of high schoolers that would be coming in to transfer in that do not have integrated math pathways, of how we can reflect that and properly place students in classes?
Yes, so I mean, the guidance right now is around like a course syllabus or course standards review for the courses they do have. It'll be similar guidance, but we also intend to have some support for modules in the event that there's gaps. Perhaps, you know, if a student took Algebra 1 and now they're going to go into integrated Algebra 2, but we know they'll be missing some key geometry content. So how do we supplement that? But yes, that will be provided. Resources from the state, and then of course, ultimately the implementation is at the local level. But we want to provide some resources for what the best practice is around supporting the student.
Thanks.
Lindsay,
Yes.
I see on your timeline, spring, summer of 2025, pre-K through 12 comprehensive math plan guidance. So I know that's in the future, but just a thought, as part of that planning integration, I'm asking from community college perspective of that remediation for students who aren't yet testing CCR in mathematics, since it's comprehensive math plan all the way through 12th grade.
Yes, so we do have some language around CCR in the equitable instruction and the action items for all original guidance. That is something that we can look at aligning more to the updated, well, it won't be updated yet before we get it out, but thinking about more intentional guidance around that for the revised plans. It's not currently in there. It wasn't in the first version was only for pre-K 5, so it didn't heavily align. But when we're looking at pre-K 12, we do want to incorporate alignment to CCR. So I think I take it as an area of feedback. It hasn't gone out yet, so it's something we can look at closely for
And no
alignment.
pressure from me. I was just wondering if our college might receive some inquiries from our LEA partners in our regular conversations that happen monthly about they're drafting a plan, and might they call on us in the next months for something they'll be submitting in the summer. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's not. I appreciate it though. Even it's not something that we fully align, and I think it's a good area of alignment to think about best practices. So yes.
Okay, any other questions or feedback for Lindsay? All right, hearing none, seeing none. Thank you again, Lindsay, for sharing with us. And we appreciate it. And if you are able to, you may have already shared your presentation. But if not, if you were able to reshare it with the people here, that would be great. And I am going to turn it over then to Kirk to lead us into the career counseling discussion.
Yes, very exciting. So I don't see Molly and Latif on yet, so I think we're just going to jump to hear from our students on so far the second year of career counseling, what impact it's had on them. So to kind of tee this up, I mean, this is the second year implementation, and each of the LEAs, local boards, and community colleges have brought on career coaches and have started delivering services. As the local workforce development director in Anne Arundel County and know what a big lift this is, I equate this to doing two things at one time: doing a startup of a new initiative and at the same time doing a merger where you're bringing in the culture of the local workforce boards, the LEAs, and the community college. So it's been a big task to get these programs up going, but luckily we're starting to have impact and really starting to be able to get into students, really having a deeper conversation with them about what careers they may be interested, giving them opportunities to do a deeper dive in exploring those careers, and then talking with them about their post-graduation plan with that, and then also what classes they need to take while they're still in school. So I'm going to turn it over to our guest speakers. I think this time I'm going to start with Laura from Frederick County to kind of give a high-level overview of what's happening in Frederick County, and then introduce your guest speakers. And we want to hear directly from your students on how they're receiving and taking in career coaching, and if there's been any big change in their career goals because of this program.
Thank you so much. So in Frederick County, we are happy to be rocking and rolling with our coaches who are hired back in July 1 of 2023. So we've been at this for kind of the full year and a half that we've been in it so far. And really our coaches have done such an amazing job being that spark, that catalyst, and creating what I consider life-changing moments for our students. So I want to introduce you to Aria. So Aria started working with our career coach, Miss Tanya Chubb, as a freshman. So last year at Urbana High School with career exploration and really connecting her to exciting opportunities within our community. And I want to let her talk to us about the details of her journey and the impact that the program has had. So Aria, take it away.
Hi, my name is Aria Wimbush. I'm a sophomore at Urbana High School. And as you said, I started talking to Ms. Chubb my freshman year. And she gave a presentation about what the career coach services she offered and how to reach out to her in my English class. So after that, I reached out to her. And at the time, I wanted to be an architect or an engineer. And I'd heard a lot about that, but I really wanted more information to know if that's really what I wanted to do. And so she gave me some surveys to help me find my interests and skills. And so then I kept meeting with her last year. And then at the end of the school year, I got to have an informational interview because we reached out to an architect, and that was really interesting. And I greatly benefited from that. And so then this year I started talking to her. She introduced me to the ACE program, which is architecture, construction, and engineering. And we just get to meet people that are architects, leaders of the field. And by the time I had heard about it, the due date to get into the group was already passed, but she emailed them and I was able to get into it. And so I was very thankful for that because I've learned so much and I've attended every meeting and I love it. And so at the ACE program, there was an architect giving us a presentation, and he mentioned I could get he was willing to have high schoolers shadow at his company. So I reached out because that really interested me, and then I was able to shadow him for a day. And that was very impactful for me. I learned a lot from that experience, and I still, after the ACE program, we meet every 2 weeks. So then I will just reach out to Ms. Chubb. I'll have a meeting with her and I'll keep her updated on what we did. And she's been a huge help. And I'm really grateful for having a career coach at our school. .
Thank you so much, Aria.
So before we move on to Washington County, do we have any questions for Aria? Well, Aria, you did a great job on this, and I'm glad that, you know, this program is in place to be able to give you that opportunity. That's exactly what it's for. It's for to help you to identify careers you may want to go into, but then present those opportunities to do a deeper dive and experience that and connect you to mentors. So thank you for sharing that. I see Rachel Amstead with AIB has a question.
Aria, I'm a former principal and teacher, so I can't let you go without a few questions. I'm curious, what would you recommend to other students if they weren't aware of what was offered, or if they were just on the fence about reaching out? What would you tell them?
I would say definitely reach out to Ms. Chubb because they'll learn so much. And even if you have no idea about what you want to do, she has surveys and to like let you like have you figure out like what skills you want. And I definitely say to recommend. I recommend it.
Awesome. Great advice. Well, thank you for being here and sharing that information.
And if I may, Aria, Dave, so I think ACE, because I heard you talk about ACE mentoring, and I think that's architecture, construction, and engineering, and I might have gotten that wrong. But if you wouldn't mind saying a word about what drew you to that field and how your ACE experience might have kind of expanded your knowledge.
Well, I started like the first time I think I ever heard anything about like architecture was when I was in 6th grade. And I thought it was interesting, but really I didn't know like anything about it. I just thought, oh, you build things. So I told Ms. Chubb about that. And at ACE, I get to hear lots of different like it just like opened up the field for me. And I got to talk to lots of different leaders of the field and did not just architecture with construction engineering too. And I really I knew nothing about construction. And so then that really made me very interested. And so then I got that shadowing and that was really helpful.
See, thank you. That we can hear the passion in your voice.
Hello, Aria. Thank you again for coming here with us, sharing a little bit about your journey. I am a former high school teacher, and so I'm so excited about your ability to shadow someone in the field. I think that's so important in helping to kind of determine if that's what you want to do or not. And so my question is more about now that you have this and you're still excited about the field, how has that kind of informed what courses you may be taking while you're still in high school?
Okay, so I was on the fence this year. When I was signing up for my courses last year, I didn't know whether I really wanted to take an architecture course that my school provides. I was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. I don't know if I'll still be interested in it when I get to my sophomore year. So I ended up not taking that class. But then being in the ACE program, I've learned so much and I really gained a passion for it. So then I signed up to take architecture my junior year.
That is awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Aria? So Aria, again, thank you for sharing your story. As David said, we could hear the passion in your voice about this, and you've really, I'm glad that you're taking advantage of what's going on with career counseling. And to Ms. Chubb, thank you. You guys, I mean, sometimes we forget about the career coaches when we're in this model. You guys are the backbone to this program and success. So thank you for the work that you're doing and the great job that you're doing. So thank you very, very much.
I would like to add, I appreciate you all allowing us to be on and giving Aria and myself this opportunity. But I also want to give a highlight and a shout out to her parents. In the process of all of this, when she would come into my office, she would bring her lunch. We'd have lunchtime, lunch bunch. She would bring her friends. I give them that opportunity to bring their friends. If you want to come, you can come. You can bring your friends, bring your lunch. We're going to have a working lunch. we would call her parents. And when she would share something with me, I would call and make sure that they were on board. Like, I had this opportunity. I shared it with Aria. She's interested. How do you feel about it? Where, can we get the support from you? And her parents all along. So I just thank you for the opportunity, and to her parents as well. So we talked about the word stakeholders, and their parents, they're there. We need them.
We do. And, making sure that parents are aware of this career counseling program so that they can support their students. I mean, my vision in Anne Arundel County is that every parent at the dinner table saying, well, what did you learn about career today, and things like that. So that is so important that the parents be part of this conversation. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Chubb before we transition over to Washington County?
Just really quick, I know I also want to echo Kirk's, thanks for the work that you do. How have you balanced just the sheer number of students that you need to reach?
Great question. Urbana High School has approximately 2,000 students. The balance for me comes with collaboration. The other 23 career coaches who are distributed throughout Frederick County Public Schools, we meet, we collaborate, we share. And then my CTE department, we do things together. They allow me in the classroom, because if I don't have my own students, so I don't have my own class. I have 2,000 students, but I don't have my own class. So there has to be a segue for me to get to the students. So as Aria said, I went into the English class. So it's not just, oh, Mrs. Chubb is only assigned to CTE. No, my principal and my administrators allow me to let the school know what I have available, and then those teachers can contact me. So I'm going to department meetings, collaborating there. I'm in the lunchroom, I'm watering plants. I'm in child development. I'm everywhere. And that collaboration really makes a big deal. So yeah, teamwork makes the dream work.
Any other questions for Ms. Chubb? Well, Laura, thank you for the great work.
I see
you're
a
doing.
hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aisha.
Yeah, I just have one question about like how you directly impact students like one-on-one, because I know that is like a big question that a lot of people have. How do you get like that one-on-one attention from your career counselor? And I know that in previous meetings you talked about how we have like a group of students that have like one career path that they're thinking about, and you work with that group of students. But how do you specifically work on making sure that if you have like some students, they get that one-on-one attention from you?
Well, I allow my students to tell me what they want. So when I speak with them, I ask them to email me. We have an email system where the students and the teachers are connected. So my request, what I share with them is, I'm always going to teach you how to be professional. So when you email me, say good morning, good afternoon. Don't say, hey, Ms. Chubb. And then tell me what it is that you desire. And tell me if we've met. Mrs. Chubb, you were in my English class, and I would like to have a one-on-one. Now they will know, and they talk to each other. So even if I have not been in their class, their friends have said to them, oh, Mrs. Chubb, she's all right, talk to Mrs. Chubb. And when I see them in the hallways, I say to them, hey, have I talked to you? Now there's something that I do that is not required, but my coordinator, Laura, and they okayed it. And that is, when the students are late to school, they have to sign in with attendance. I help with attendance. So when I see those students, I'm like, have you talked to your career coach? And so I'll do those one-on-ones with them. Okay, sign up for a one-on-one. This is what you need to do. Email Mrs. Chubb, CHUBB, no S, and tell me, you met me this morning, you were running a little late, and tell me what you want. And if they tell me one-on-one, I also let them know you can bring a friend if you want to come at lunchtime. So my students get to choose, and they sign up. And my day is, unless I'm out of the building meeting with employers or at meetings, my day is all about the students. And if they sign up one-on-one, I schedule them, I send them a pass, they come see me. But oftentimes the small groups, they'll come as a small group and then they'll break off and say, okay, Mrs. Chubb, I want to meet with you one-on-one. So they get choices, they get to choose.
Any other questions? All right. So Andrew, do you want to talk about what's going on in Washington County?
I sure do. Thanks again for having us this afternoon. In Washington County, we have 18 coaches among our various high school and middle schools. And I was hired September 2023, and then our coaches were hired in a scattered format for the rest of the last school year. But this is our first full school year with a full team of career coaches, and we could not be prouder of the work that we're doing, making an impact with students. And just like Ms. Chubb mentioned, we have a lot of students and kind of few coaches in some areas to meet the needs of all those students. So we're meeting them in one-on-one capacities, group capacities, and investing heavily into guest speakers and field trips, getting experiential career exploration events going on throughout our schools, and either bringing back things that disappeared through COVID that were career related, or developing some new things. And so our schools are very excited to have new personnel in their buildings to kind of bring back things that they knew were valuable to their student populations. Like college and career fairs, or just different field trips and connections with local trade schools, things that just kind of went by the wayside. So we have some wonderful coaches, one of which is Miss Amber Day, who is not here in this meeting, but she is at South Hagerstown High School. She has made a great impact on those students here. It's one of our biggest high schools in the county. We are lucky enough to have 2 coaches there, and she is just such an impactful member of that team there. And I asked her for a student who would fit kind of the bill for sharing their experience here. And she thought of Nadia almost immediately. And so Nadia's here. Nadia and I have not met, but I've heard wonderful things about Nadia. And she is here to talk about her experience. So Nadia, I'll hand it over to you to kind of talk about how you first found out about Miss Day and Coach Day and her services, and then how your first meeting went and where she kind of took it from there. So take it away, Nadia.
Good afternoon. My name is Nadia Farouk. I attend South Hagerstown High School. I am currently a senior in South. So I met Ms. Day last year in 11th grade when she walked inside my ALA class, giving and spreading information about career coach and how they can help get jobs and any type of jobs that you like, not just like Starbucks, McDonald's, just like anything. So first thought I had was, okay, so I had a passion since I was little to do business, specifically real estate. So right away, I sent her an email and I went to have a meeting with her. She sat down with me and I told her specifically what I wanted. I was like, Miss Day, I need a specific job that has to do with my career, business, real estate, or anything with business if you can't find real estate. So she introduced me to Maryland Apprenticeships, and we looked through the business and we found one. It was an accounting apprentice that was newly open to any apprentice. So I applied, and she helped me apply, and she helped me send all my transcripts and what I needed to send over to the business. And from that, I went to the interview. Like a week or 2 later, got accepted, But then like a month later, as I was about to start, we ran into a situation where the apprentice, they couldn't do it anymore. So they couldn't offer the position up to any youth. So Ms. Day and Siona, they both had a backup plan already for me. So what happened was there was a real estate company, Keller Williams, and they already had a position taken. So Miss Day and Sienna, they emailed and they talked to Keller Williams and whoever runs it inside the Hagerstown building, and they said, hey, we have a student and she really is interested in real estate and would love a position. So they opened up a communication specialist position for me where I could do marketing, look at their marketing trends, look basically into a lot of the housing. And they gave me more than just marketing because they also knew that I love real estate. And so that was pretty amazing because whenever I went there for the interview, there was 4 people before me for the interview for that specific position. And whenever I interviewed, I was like, okay, I got this, you know. But I never knew that there was 4 people before me until Miss Day and Siona told me after I got accepted to Keller Williams, my second interview. And so once I started, I was really enjoying the job. They kept me updated. I kept them updated. Siona came to visit me all the time. Ms. Day also emails me. She like lets me know what's happening, you know, how am I doing? Do I need help with anything? They're always there for me whenever I need it. And like I genuinely love the experience because now that I just turned 18, I'm hooked up with real estate and I already took my classes, finished it, passed my exams, and I'm just forward to looking to get my license.
That's amazing, Nadia. Thank you so much for sharing.
Nadia, thank you so much for sharing. I think you know, we're so glad that you have taken advantage of this program and now are off, you know, exploring and having opportunities within the career that you're interested in. Any questions for Nadia?
I just want to congratulate her. That is, amazing that you were able to make it through those interviews. And I think that, the career path obviously is one that's not going away. So I think that's pretty awesome.
What made you interested in real estate at such a young age? I'm just curious.
So basically, growing up, my family had a business. It was just a random gas station in Pennsylvania. But what really evolved in my life was business. And so whenever I put business together, I had extended family and friends around me, around my family, around my parents. And like majority of them, I've just started hearing real estate all over my head. So just growing up, I took the time to research colleges, research a lot of jobs about real estate, and I actually came across real estate broker. So I'm gonna do real estate for 3 years and then become a broker afterwards because that's just my passion from the people that did it around me and how much I've heard about it. So that's just my, you know, just passion because of my parents and them just in the business field themselves yet today. That's why.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Aisha?
So I just wanted to ask you, I know that you talked a lot about how you are passionate about real estate, like growing up, but especially for those students who might not like have an idea of what they want to do, how would you recommend, or like what would you recommend to students to like find an area of interest or like find passion?
Honestly, like if I had to say something, I'd probably say just, you know, do what you love. Like that's the main thing. I did what I love and now I'm here today where I'm at. I'm a basically a successful person because of just, you know, still in high school, doing an actual business job towards my career and being like a agent at such a young age. So basically do what you love, get some research in, see if that category fits you, and then you will just be fine with it.
That is such awesome advice.
It is. Rachel?
A similar question, but I'm wondering, what would you tell your classmates if they really hadn't spent much time with the career counselor or didn't really know the resources available? What would you tell them about seeking out those supports?
So with this, I actually have ran into situations where a lot of my friends, they like didn't know what they wanted to do and like they struggled. So what I did, I was like, hey, I have Miss Day. She's our great career coach. So I was like, if you guys go to her, she will help you. And I also went along with 3 of my friends and went to Miss Day, sat there with them, and we all, you know, went through, and Miss Day showed them the process on how to do your resumes and the cover letters, all of that. And more than half of them now have a job. And so it's pretty, it's with that category. She just
Awesome.
Any additional questions or comments? All right. Well, again, hearing these 2 students really give me a lot of hope and a lot of joy towards the future of Maryland. I mean, one of the most important parts of this program is that we're actually building the future workforce in the state of Maryland. I mean, Maryland's labor force still has not recovered from COVID, but looking at how do we better use this program to help students to identify their passion, their career, their interests, give them opportunities to do a deeper dive to learn about those different careers, to make sure this is something they want to do, or say, hey, this isn't what I want to do. I need to rethink this, is really what this program's about, and then giving them that hands-on experience. So I think both of our students today really talked about what the heart of this program really is about. I really hope, Rachel and AIB, I really hope that there's a way that we could really get this recording out. Let some of our elected officials, I know there's talks about, the continuation of career counseling program, but I think anyone that listens to these students know that this is one part of Blueprint that we cannot afford not to do. We know that Blueprint is and I'm not going to get on my political soapbox, I promise, Rachel. But we know that this is a very expensive initiative, but this is one part that is showing ROI, return on investment for Maryland's economy and helping these young people. So this is something we cannot not do. So I just want to thank everybody, and for Andrew and Laura, thank you guys for the great work you guys are doing. It's not hard. This isn't hard. Like I said before, we're in the process of starting up a brand new initiative, merging different cultures with the LEAs, the local workforce boards, and our community colleges in this. So it's not easy bringing on all these career coaches, getting them implement. This has been a lot of work. This has been a lot of work, and we need more time to really show the fruits of this. So, please continue doing the great job that you guys are doing. One of the things I'm excited to announce through the leadership and initiative of Andrew and Laura and some of the other leads, and working with the Maryland Workforce Association on April the 28th, we're going to have a convening at the Maritime Institute, where we're going to bring all the career coaches together throughout the state of Maryland so they have opportunity to network, learn from each other, share best practices, and really continue to build this program in Maryland. I mean, myself and Brandon Butler, the executive director of the Maryland Workforce Association, we've been on our road trip going around the country talking about this great initiative in Maryland. And other states are watching us. They're watching us to see how this is being implemented. So, as Ike Leggett says, college and career readiness is the North Star of Blueprint. My biased opinion, this career coaching program is the North Star of college and career readiness. So, Deidre, I know you're with the community college, and I know Montgomery Community College has been doing a lot with career coach. I'm not sure if that's the area that you're involved with, but if there's anything you want to share from the community college perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing some work with our strategic plan right now through academic affairs and student affairs where we're trying to get more and more students acquainted with these tools and really exploring career options at the beginning of their college process, not at the end of that journey. So we're working right now to try to get that incorporated in some of our gateway courses as a pilot in some departments, and looking to scale that once we see some success. But yeah, the more students that can be acquainted with those tools and connected with, I think just building a vocabulary around the various options they have and the different pathways they have, the better off we'll be. So we're looking forward to partnering with our school system to be able to do that more frequently with dual enrollment students as well.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for the community colleges from being a partner. In the Montgomery County Community College is really working closely with WorkSource Montgomery and Montgomery County Public Schools. I know the community college in Prince George's County is working closely with Prince George's County Public Schools and Employee Prince George's. I know Anne Arundel Community College, we're getting them more engaged with what we're doing. So this is definitely a three-way partnership with all the partners all contributing to make this program a success. So to transition a little bit, speaking of success and metrics and outcomes, we have Molly Menser with the CTE committee and Latifa Grant, consultant, to kind of give us an update on where we are with how do we really show success of this program. I mean, of course, one way is with the student's voice and testimony like we got today, but what is the data behind this program and where we are with that? So I'll turn it over to you, Molly.
Thank you so much, Kirk, and thank you everyone for having us here. Molly Mesnard, Senior Advisor to the CTE Committee within the Governor's Workforce Development Board. And so just wanted to provide you all an update from our last public meeting, which was at the end of January. And as you all, well, most of you are familiar, the CTE Committee is charged with evaluating the career counseling program at the end of this calendar year. And sort of backwards map from that, we realized obviously that we needed to set some metrics and some benchmarks of how to really measure that. And so over the last 6 months, we've engaged different stakeholder groups, including this advisory committee as well, to give us feedback on drafted tentative metrics, as well as sort of defining some of the terms within those metrics. So we presented those terms and so forth to the CTE committee at their January 30th meeting. The CTE committee members had a little bit of feedback just around sort of the terminology, sort of like short-term outcomes versus long-term outcomes. And then I think the primary piece of feedback that we received from the CTE committee was around really defining the long-term outcomes. So, one thing we had touched on in our presentation is that, when meeting with different stakeholders and focus groups, aligning on the long-term outcomes, we're still trying to figure that out with respect to what can be attributed to career counseling that you really are measuring. So in the workforce world, right, we look at wages, are you employed, and so forth. But can that be connected to career counseling? And then, the other big sort of question to figure out in all of that is, where do we get the information? Again, with employment data, we can get that. But if you're talking about employer satisfaction, student satisfaction 5 years out, and so forth, it's a different lift of how do we go about doing that. So all of that to say, what we presented was really tentative metrics because we are still in the process of securing our resources around having an evaluator. And obviously the evaluator would have sort of the final say on what those defined terms are. However, we are working with the AIB and MSDE staff on how to incorporate, some of these metrics are already being captured in the annual report that the local workforce boards have to submit. And then others could be sort of embedded in other areas. And so all that to say, sort of the next steps are I think the AIB, Gretchen and Rachel will be presenting on some of these defined terms at the AIB's meeting later this week, February 20th. And so that will also sort of socialize some of those terms and definitions. And then we'll continue working, with them as well on, providing guidance or a memo or so forth on the terms as we sort of secure our evaluator resources. And then a second component will obviously be kind of circling back with you all and other stakeholders as we start sort of mapping out some of these long-term metrics to capture. So looking forward to engaging with you all at a future meeting around having more of a discussion around that. So Latifa, anything else? Or else I'll open it up to questions.
No, I think you've covered everything in terms of, where we are to date and what our plans are going forward. Would love to, answer any questions that the group has, as well as just encourage you to kind of maybe start thinking as we come back to this body around, what type of metrics we could measure in terms of determining the long-term success of career coaching. We feel like we have a pretty good handle in terms of what those short-term outcomes are and what we expect to see by the time our young people graduate from high school. But as Molly said, when you start to look several years out, how will we manage to measure the efficacy of career coaching and its longer-term impacts is where we're headed next and trying to make sure that we define those. But yeah, I think Molly, it'd be great if there's any questions from the group, we're glad to answer those. I know we presented recently back in November, so I didn't want to go through the whole presentation with you all. You've kind of already seen, there's been some small tweaks and changes there, but really just wanted to give you an update in terms of where we are and where we're going.
Come on, Latifa, I need to see the presentation one more time.
Kirk, I've only shown it to you about 100 plus times at this point, right?
I did just drop the link to our slides, and I believe when the AIB presents, they'll be pulling information directly from the same deck. So, but I did just drop that link, so Dave, that can be included in your annotated notes. But yes.
So any questions for Molly or Latifa? So seeing none, so Molly and Latifa, first of all, I want to thank you guys. This has been a big lift, and you guys have done an excellent job with getting us to this point. You have been very collaborative in making sure that you're getting feedback from the LEAs, from the local workforce boards, from the community colleges, and from this committee. So I just want to thank you guys for this. I have one question for you, though. I'm starting to hear a little bit of hesitation or a little bit of feedback, pushback from the field saying, well, we still don't have final metrics. Are these metrics what we should be going with? So each program, each local area, each local workforce board should start collecting the data around these metrics.
So right, there's kind of two pieces of that. So I think given the extensive stakeholder input and the fact that, certainly when we worked with the local stakeholders who are implementing this, a lot of these metrics are something being captured already or close to being. So, I would definitely encourage, if they aren't capturing these pieces, to start thinking about that. To say they're the definitive and final metrics, again, we kind of really need to wait until we have our professional evaluator on board to say these are certainly the terms. But I do think, I can't remember the number offhand, but there's about 10, defined. And I think it's pretty safe to say that those are pretty straightforward. And so if you're not collecting them, to start thinking about collecting them. And Gretchen and Rachel, I don't know if you all want to chime in or just tell people to kind of tune in to AIB meeting on sort of encouraging that mindset, if there's anything else to add.
I think that's appropriate. And I think that really just in implementing a program like this, our due diligence would be to be keeping track of. These are kind of basic things that we're asking people to keep track of. They're not that different from what was in the annual report. And again, that will be due this year and it will look fairly similar. We will get a template out earlier this year. But I think in terms of the long-term nature of the program and what's in statute, the CTE committee really is charged with identifying best practice. What's working, what's happening around the state. And I think that's a pretty timely piece of information that we are relying on, that the AIB is eager to see. And then especially as we anticipate, I think Kirk, you alluded to some conversations happening in session this year around this topic. The best practices are really going to be insightful and needed to kind of mine from all 24 districts and 3 partners in each to know what's working. And in order to know what's working, we need these basic numbers. We need these basic data points to be able to reference and speak back to, whether it's a question of hiring or numbers of students served or whatever these pieces are. I think that would be very, very helpful for folks to be keeping really good records on how they're spending the money, who they're touching, how they're impacting students, and what's ultimately what's working.
Dr. Dreyer, and then Robin Werner.
Thank you so much. So I don't envy you, Molly and Latifa, because I think long-term success metrics are really challenging here. There's so many variables. You know, I think it's great to know, and again, I don't know where to go. So I think about this a lot. Knowing how many are touched is a baseline, and that's helpful. But that doesn't tell you success of the program. And yet, unfortunately, 3 years is not enough time to gather that data because it's not going to tell you about employment. So I don't have an answer to this. I'm just going to say kudos to you all for working on it, because I think it's a huge challenge to truly understand what success is. And I think Rachel touched on best practices. That could be a big help. But how are you? There's so many variables. So what's success? I mean, you know, employment can help. I just kudos to you guys, because this is a really challenging one to deal with.
It is. And, you know, to your point, you know, kind of just putting it out there, certainly to this group and anyone tuning in, to kind of just be thinking through that. And, you know, as we kind of circle around on next steps and, you know, continue to hold focus group and feedback sessions and stakeholder input, you know, kind of share your ideas, share your thoughts.
Well, thank you both, because it is a challenging one.
Thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, I just had a question, and I know this came up earlier in the year about the post-CCR pathways and how we're capturing that data point. Is there any more clarity on that regarding how a student is identified? Because we have many students who might find themselves on multiple pathways at once, particularly in our schools that are comprehensive. Like, is there going to be some sort of definition similar to CTE where we have a concentrator status, like they've taken 2 classes and that puts them on a pathway? Or is that up to the LEA to decide?
So if you're talking about defining, I mean, the post-CCR pathways, then, you know, we kind of give sort of the examples of what those terms are defined, but I believe those are defined kind of in the blueprint. And so if you're asking about, I don't know, Latifa, I saw you nodding.
Yeah. I mean a student identifying which one they're on. Like, are they allowed to say, if I'm a student and I'm taking dual enrollment and AP classes at Easton High School, are we allowed to report that they are on both pathways at once? And if we are, I guess 2 points to this question, how does a school identify a student on a pathway? Because you could have students that take 1 class at that point in time, and then they're no longer on the pathway the next time we run that data. So just thinking logistically for pooling those metrics for a school district, like, are there going to be some definitions to help us, and can they identify as more than one at a time?
Richard, I don't know if you'd like to weigh in here with some additional guidance, because from a career coaching perspective, you're absolutely right, Robin. Like, we're asking from a career coaching perspective, the percentage of 10th graders that have an identified post-CCR pathway. And we've been able to say, and these are the post-CCR pathways, right, as currently defined. And so we know that it's AP and IB and dual enrollment and CTE and all the things. But to your point, like, we have a definition. So when are you considered a concentrator, for instance, in CTE? CTE or what have you. But so I get your question, which is like, what constitutes a dual enrollment pathway?
Right.
Is there a number of courses that you need to be a dual enrollment completer, right? In CTE, thankfully, we have very clear guidelines. We know when you're a concentrator, we know when you're a completer, but what does that look like in AP? When are you, when are you considered a completer in AP so that's not a part of the career coaching measure. The question in the career coaching measures have you identified your CCR pathway? Are you enrolled in a CCR pathway? But your question is a good one, Robin, in terms of how do you know when a student is making progress along or when they've completed a particular CCR pathway? I'm going to put my friend Richard on the spot for a minute here to see if.
Sorry, Richard,
if you can
I
provide some
misunderstood
additional
because I thought
guidance.
that this metric at one point, like we had to actually say which one they were. And I know it's for some report we do, right? Like we have to be able to identify, which pathway.
Latif is on this pathway, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And if there's going to be some clarity on that, and if we can, because there are going to be some that are on more than one at a time.
Yeah, and I think, Robin, I think this was part of the feedback that we received, and hence why the metric was changed to
Gotcha,
those
that
that
makes sense.
identified the pathway. Mhm,
Okay, because I knew it was at some point. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Richard, did you want to add anything, or they pretty much?
I think that's pretty clear as mud. And I'm not gonna to make it much clearer. I think probably from a school perspective, it would be helpful to know like all of the things that your students are in. And so probably you're already tracking like the dual enrollment programs, dual credit, and CT and all of those other things. Perhaps when we start fully implementing at scale 6-year plans and we have this nice planning process, that helps us to identify ahead of time sort of the direction that students are going to go. But let's be real, Blueprint effectively rolled out means that you are braiding together CTE and dual credit and advanced academics and all of these other things into these programs, right? And so it's the world of opportunity for kids. At the risk of kicking the can to someone else, my buddy at AIB, Rachel, I know that we have had conversations about these sort of things, like how do you count a student that's doing dual enrollment and also CTE? Like, can it count in both buckets or not? And I don't know that we've landed on a decision one way or the other. I think there's a lot of discussion around what that would look like and what duplicating on counts would do to the data and to goals. I think it's like everything that we have all had to endure with Blueprint up to this point. You build it as you fly, which is the dumbest analogy I think I've ever heard, but it's sort of like where we are, right? It's, we're building it as we're flying it. And I think we'll figure out sort of which buckets the data needs to go in and how we assess that over time.
I know we only have 1 minute, but while you're on that, I just want to put in one plug. I really would like to advocate that we do find a way to show students who do more than one, and we don't put school districts in the position of having to choose, because then you have adults behind a computer who look at data and make a decision for a student that might not be accurate, and it doesn't accurately portray like what we've provided them as well. And I say that because in CTE, we've had to do that for years when students complete more than one pathway. We've had to select which one counted for some of our data for Perkins, and it doesn't accurately depict what is being provided or what a student is doing. So if there's any way we can portray that so that students can be labeled, and I understand the numbers might not match, but I think it's an important metric for our LEAs.
Can I just echo what you just said, Robin? Because I think as much as we are trying to make sure we're not tracking students towards one outcome that starts very early, the ability to do that, I think, can support the flexibility that we're saying we want students to have the autonomy to do and to take. And so I think that would be great if that was an option. I also want to bring our attention to the time, as it is 1 minute after, and I know all of us have additional things after this. And so I wanted to just take this time to thank everyone and begin to close out this discussion, and know that we have many more discussions that you all can come and share in the future as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Kirk to see if he has anything else before we close out.
So again, I just want to thank, all of our guests today. I think this was a lively conversation around career counseling. And then also our earlier conversation around the math part of CTE, of being college ready, career and college ready. So this was a very lively conversation. Thank you for everyone for attending. And as Olivia said, this isn't the last time you're going to hear these conversations. We want to share. We definitely want to bring in more of the career coaches and more of the students to hear directly from the front line on what's really happening and how this program is being implemented. So thank you all. Wish you all a good rest of your work week. And thank you again for being part of our discussion today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.